Okay, we are making these bracelets today. So let's get started. My base wires are going to be the 18 gauge bare copper round wire. These are this is dead soft, 24 inches of this wire. I like using the 18 gauge dead soft because it's easy to bend and do my swirls, but yet when the wire is swirled and weaved, it actually becomes a pretty stable bracelet. I'm also using 28 gauge bare copper wire. Now normally I use about 3 or 4 wingspans of this wire. I think there's only about 2 wingspans on here right now. I'm going to try to show you in this video how to, if for some reason your wire breaks, you're in the middle of the project, I'm going to show you how to deal with that if it happens or if I run out. I'm hoping that happens. I'm not saying it's going to, but we're going to try. These are size 8 Czech glass beads, and as you can see, I used the green and the yellow last time. All right, let's get started. First thing that I have to do is to bend it as close to the middle as possible, because as you can see on the one end, it is bent like this. Yeah, so we want to do that. So I'm going to bend it. First these are really long pieces of wire, so I'm sorry if I'm out of frame there for a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to take the ends of my wire and I'm going to put them together just so I can have an idea of where the middle is. Just like that. So that's the end there. Okay, so now I'm going to just pull them in just a little bit. And then I'm going to bring those together so they're sitting perpendicular to each other as best as I can. Now I'm going to bend it. Try to keep them as perpendicular as you can. This is the hardest part, is trying to do this while filming. And just keep bending it in. Go slowly, do not go too fast with this. So like that, and I'm keeping them as, as perpendicular as I can. All right, and I'm going to pull them in to where, and this part you can pull them in as you can pull this in to make it as small of a loop as you want. You can have a bigger loop. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go right about there. And then if you find that your wires are overlapping a little bit, because the inner one right here on mine is not bending as much as I want it to. So I'm going to bend it a little bit more because I want them to be like that. Now I just take them and I bend them back out again. I'm going to hold it down like this, and I'm just going to take my thumb and twist 3 of the wires straight like that. I'm going to pull you in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. So pull them out so they're sitting back like they start to go in the outer direction again. There, just play with it a little bit. You can bend these a little bit if you want to. Bend them in, but I like that. That looks good, just like that. Now I just bend these back to sit straight with each other. So at this point, it's not too bad as long as you have something to weave here first to get it started. And then you can work to keep pulleys together as you work down the bracelet. Now I'm going to take my 28 gauge and I'm going to start doing my weave. Before I do that though, I'm going to pull these wires just so I know which ones are which. There, like most of my projects, I always do this part. It just makes it a lot easier to weave, especially being that there's such a, a long wires to deal with. All right, so to begin with this, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail, probably maybe 4 inches. It doesn't have to be really long. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop on each one of these wires. Try to keep that separate a little bit. You want some room in there. Always do a row of loops first, just to stabilize the wires and get these wires in the right place. And there's my first loop. And then I'm going to do the second one. Just make sure that your wires are in the correct position. You don't want to be weaving the wires and they're all, overlapping. It doesn't make this project easy if you do that. Okay, so there's the first row done. This weave I want to do is a little bit tighter. I want the bracelet to be stable and secure. I'll number these wires so you know which ones I'm working with. So the top one will be 1. There's 6 wires here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 1 to 6. 1 at the top, 6 at the bottom. Now I'm going to take my weaving wire and I'm going to go and wrap around wires 5 and 6 first. So wrap around there. Like that. Then come up between wires 5 and 6. Like that. Okay. Then you take your weaving wire and you go up over wires 4 and 5. So loop it around those two. And then come up between those two same wires, 4 and 5, from the back. There. Then I'm going to wrap around wires 3 and 4. And then come up the back between wires 3 and 4. This is actually a very easy weave. Okay? Then you take your weaving wire and go up and around wires 2 and 3 from the top. And then come up from the back between wires 2 and 3. Okay, so it looks like that. Then take your weaving wire and go over and around wires 1 and 2. Like that. And then take your weaving wire and come up between wires 1 and 2 to make your first loop for your next row. So your wire should look something like that. All right, now heading back down towards me, I'm going to do the same thing that I did right here for the first one. I'm going to loop every wire all the way down. Now I've already made my first loop here, as you can see. There's the first one is there already. So I'm going to go down between wires 2 and 3 and make my first little loop, and then go up and around wires 1 and 2. Like that. And that's my second loop. Come up between wires 3 and 4. Like that. Make the loop around wire 3. Like so. Again, go down around between wires 4 and 5. And then up and around wire 4. Down between wires 3 and 4, I mean. Then do that to number 5. So up between 5 and 6. And then down between 4 and 5, wires 4 and 5. And then wrap your loop around wire 6. There. And now you have your first row. I'm going to take my Nylon Jaw Pliers. I'm going to push that down a little bit. And then I'm going to take and press those together. So now your wires are fairly stable, and now you're able to do the rest of your weave. When you're working this way, you grab 2 wires all the way up, 2 wires at a time. When you're working back towards you, you do the 1 loop each wire all the way back down. So just follow that pattern. Don't worry about this one here. That one actually doesn't count. I do that one just to stabilize the wires and get the wire connected, to get the weaving wire connected to the base wires. So it's this particular one here that you want to worry about. So you want 12 of these ones. So now you've got one done. I'll meet you back here when you have 12 of those. All right, so 12 rows done. So I'm just going to count them for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one here, this one was the initial one I did to get the weaving wire on the base wire and stabilize. So you don't count this first one. So you count these ones. So 1, 2, and you should look and see, like, it looks like there's 2 rows there, like 2 weaving wires. See that there? Can you see that close enough? I don't know if I can. Right there. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, now what I want to do is just wrap my weaving wire around this number 1 wire. Just that one, probably about maybe 20 times. It really depends on the swirl that you do, how many you put there, but don't worry about it. 20 should actually not be quite enough, because even 20, when you squish it down, is pretty short on the wire. But I'm going to put 20, and then I'm going to do my weave, and then I'm going to do my swirl after. So I'm going to put 20 on here. That's what it looks like there. All right, so like I said, approximately 20. Doesn't have to be exactly 20, but approximately 20. With each one, just press it down against your other weave. All right, there is approximately 20 loops around wire number 1. Now the fun part. I'm just gonna move this weaving wire out of the way here for a minute. What I do is I take the inside 4 wires. So if you remember when I counted, like when I numbered the wires, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I take 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So I'm going to take 2 and 3 and just kind of lift them out away so we know which ones we're dealing with. And then 4 and 5 also. So this way. So like that. So now what you want to do is decide which way that you want to, you know, if you want this to go above or this to go above. The other bracelet I did one side above the other side, like crisscrossed one above the other, and then my next twirl I did it the opposite way. So you can do it that way. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to start, and I'm sorry my hair just kicked in. It's like minus 27 here today, so it's cold, very cold. All right, I just hold my piece down, and with my finger, I just start gently curving those wires to the opposite side. So these wires that are on this side get curved to that side. So like that. Don't go very far with it because you want to, I like to try to keep all my wires pretty much, you know, working at the same time. So like that. And just slowly curve them around. If it's better for you to hold it up like this, then by all means do that. I just like to do one side a little bit at a time, try to keep them as symmetrical as possible. And this part is hard to show when you're trying to film it. Like, I've got my tripod in the way, and yeah. What I did was the wires 4 and 5 went under wires 2 and 3. So when they come back around, it's going to be the opposite way. I'm going to put these two on top of these two, if that makes sense. Okay, you can see wires 4 and 5 went underneath wires 2 and 3. So when they come around, I'm going to do the opposite. These two will be on top of these two. So just keep working it around, holding your wires. Just go slowly. It's always best to use your fingers to twist your wires around. I don't use tools for this part. And honestly, you can't make a mistake. This is totally your design. Like, you can, you know, do your twirls exactly how you want them. You want them to be asymmetrical. You want them to go to one side. It doesn't matter. Whatever you like. All right. Now I've got it to this point here. I slowly weaved it around. And as you can see, wires 4 and 5 went under the other two and are above now. And I just find that helps to keep it a little more secure. If you have just one that's steadily on top, it can be pulled a little bit or pulled out of, you know, snagged or whatever. I just find that this way they don't get snagged. All right, now you want to keep going. And at this point you decide, you know, how big or how small you want your swirls. I don't want them too small, but I don't want them too big either, right? So I'm just going to pull them in a little. Just pull them in. They can be, you know, kind of hanging over your two outer base wires a little bit. Okay. And that's kind of where I want them to stay. I don't want them to be any bigger. Because honestly, when these ones come around, it's going to make those bigger. So if you want them smaller, just pull them in a little bit more. Like that. Okay. Now, I'm just going to hold the wires at this point. I want to kind of go around these. I don't want to cover them up with these two wires. So I'm just going to hold them like that. I'm going to take these wires and I'm going to continue my bend. Just continue the bend. This one here as well. Continue this bend. Always working just real slowly. What I need to do is actually overbend these and then pull them back. So I'm going to overbend this one. So you can see pretty much all 4 of those wires, which I think looks really pretty. Okay, now I've overbent this one. Okay, because I want it to sit inside this main wire. So then, holding it right about here, you want to hold it right about there with your thumb and then pulling it back again. Like that. Okay? And then this one here, same thing. Overbend it. And then hold it right about here. Hold it with your thumb right about there, wherever you want that bend to be. I like to do it a little down a little bit so that I can leave room for those beads that I want to put on there. I just think the beads just make it look that much prettier. And then take it with your thumb and your fingers and just slowly bend it back. And there's your first loop done. And now you can see these wires are ready for the next weave. Okay, now we're going to put on our beads. So now we've got to decide on the beads. I just want to make sure I have enough room for those beads. The yellow in the size 6 and the transparent yellow in the size 8. Since there's more room on this particular side, I'm going to put these beads on this side. I'm hoping it works because this bead, this one in the middle, is actually quite big. So I'm just going to bring it down. It's quite big. So we're going to try it. If it doesn't work, you know, we can change the beads. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to bring 2 because I think I'm going to do 2 on this side. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to push those up and into place. There. Oh, that looks really pretty. These are going to look really pretty when I patina this. If I patina this. Maybe I'll just put 1 on there. I'm just going to put 1 on there for now and just see what that looks like. Because I don't want to overpower it with beads either. Like, too many beads might not make it look as nice. So let's try. And honestly, when you're putting beads on things, it's always a trial and error. Does this look all right? Does that look all right? Should I put more? Should I put less? But I'm starting to think that maybe just these beads here would look really pretty. This one might actually be too much. I'm gonna take it back off again. It's saying no, it wants to stay on. It's like, I don't know, I think that looks nice all by itself. I think that looks really pretty, just with the 1. I think what we'll do is, I'm just gonna leave it with the 1 because this size 6 glass seed bead is actually quite a bit bigger than what I had been using in my other bracelets. So with this big one here, it's almost, you know, too much to put anything else on there. So I think we'll leave it at that. I am going to have to loop this down a couple more times because I need to get past this here. I need to get to about there. And I'm going to loop this a couple more times. You just got to be careful here because, like I said, this is dead soft wire, so it is going to be subject to want to pull when you do your loops. So I'm going to do just a few more. And then just keep adding your loops until it gets to just the edge of the bead, like where you want your beads to sit. So we're almost there, maybe 1 or 2 more loops. Okay, maybe a couple more loops. Every time I push this down, I'm adding, like, I want it to be nice and tight, so I'm just adding loops until I get to where I want to start my next weave. Basically, you want to start it right where your beads end, like where the edge of your beads are. And I think that'll work right about there. So this is where everything's sitting now. My wires are pretty much all in place where I want them to be. And I can start my weave again. Okay? So now your wires are going to be a little bit, like you can see my gap there. Basically, The reason for that is, of course, the beads. So that's okay. Just do a couple of rows there, and then eventually those wires will come together and meet together, like as you weave down. So now we're going to do another 12 of this weave here. From here, you start making a loop around each of these wires again, as if you're doing your other weave. Okay. And this is where it gets a little bit, like you got to kind of watch what you're doing. You want to hold your wires kind of, you know, hold them a little more forceful in place because you want them to sit proper. It's always this first row that I watch a little bit carefully to be sure that I'm trying to get it to sit as nice as possible. So there's the first row. There's the first half of row. Now you just do the weave as you did before here, and you do 12 rows. So I'm going to do my 12 rows, all right, and I'm going to meet you back here when I have those done. So I have my next 12 rows done of my weave. Now, I basically like to have my beads going one way, then on the other loop, they go this way, and then on the other loop, they go back this way. I just think that looks prettier. So now we have to do this loop backwards. I have finished my 12th row on the top here, but that's not going to work. So now I need to bring down, I need to bring this back down. So I'm just going to loop around each one of these to bring it back down to the bottom, because I want to do my loops around the one wire on the other side. So I'm just going to bring that down. Now I'm at the bottom. Okay. I'm just going to push that up and then just kind of press everything into place. Basically, you can see wires 4 and 5 on the first loop went under wires 2 and 3. So now 4 and 5 got to go over wires 2 and 3. So like before, take your 2 wires that you want to work with. So these ones and these ones. Okay. Now, like I said, these 2 wires have to go over top these 2 wires. That'll make this shaped like that, but on the opposite side. Okay. So now I'm going to go, is that what I did? Yes. Okay. So now I'm going to take my 2 wires like I did before. Just gently start moving them around, holding everything in place. Go slow. Go very slow. All right, so you're at this point, like that. So as you can see, wires 4 and 5 are going around and on top of wires 2 and 3. And then when you get around to this side, you do the opposite. So these 2 wires, which are 2 and 3, will go over top of wires 4 and 5. I hope I'm making sense. If not, rewind and watch again. Ever so gently, just start pulling your wires around. I actually did that wrong. Okay, now if you do for some reason do something wrong, like I just did, just pull these wires back gently, because I'm not, like here is not a huge curve yet. So I'm just going to gently pull them back. I don't know, sometimes my brain. Okay, and I'm just going to swap them over. There we go. So I haven't ruined my shape. I guess it's always good to double check and make sure you're doing it right. Okay, now we got it right. Okay, because I was looking at that one thinking, okay, I've done something wrong there. Now remember, you got to overbend these ones as they come around. I screwed up and forgot to put my forgot to put my loops on this wire. We'll do that right now. So I'm just going to do that now. So now I'm going to add my beads to this wire here because I want it to be the opposite way. I just find that looks really pretty. Just kind of offsets everything. There. Now I'm just going to push them up to where I want them to be. And as you can see, my gap now is going to be on the top here. You can see down here, there was a little bit of a gap right there. But as I got to my 3rd row and my 4th row, they ended up falling right into place. So now I'm going to do a few more loops around wire number 6, just until I get to the edge of where my beads are. And it is getting easier to weave now that I'm down to, like, my weaving wire is not quite so long. So I think I'm ready to start my weave again. So I'm going to start my weave again and do another 12. I'll do my last swirl. The last swirl will be like this one. So this is going this way, this one is going this way, and then the next swirl will go that way. If you choose to do more swirls, that's totally up to you. Just make sure that you measure and you know the length of the bracelet you want to make, because I left enough room, like on this bracelet here. This one here fits me like this. So I could take this one off here. So it comes around, so there's about, you know, 1.5 inch gap on there. I left that gap because I wanted to do, you know, like a clasp type of thing like this. All right, so now I'm going to continue. I'm going to add my last loop. I will get to the end, and when I'm at the end, I will come back and we'll finish off this bracelet. Okay, I'm about half done my 3rd weave, or my 4th weave, I guess. And I have run out of wire, as you can see. I don't have enough to finish. I was kind of hoping this was going to happen. Well, I wasn't hoping it was going to happen, but I figured it would happen, and that way I could show you how to deal with that. So now I've just finished the row going up. So I'm going to bring this wire now, this weaving wire, down, and I'm going to loop it all the way down to the 3rd wire. I've already done this loop, so I'm going to do 2 more loops around wire number 2 and wire number 3. Okay. Now I'm going to leave it there. I know there's a little bit of a wire. There's probably about 5 or 6 inches here, but honestly, it gets really hard to weave when you're down to like about that much wire. So I'm going to leave that on there. Now the wire is going back. I'm leaving it going to the back because this is where it would go and then come to the front again. So I'm going to leave it there. I have cut off 1 more wingspan and put it on my, cut 1 more wingspan and put it on my bobbin. And I'm going to bring this wire through to the front of that wire. And I'm going to leave, you know, approximately 2 inches. You don't have to leave you don't have to leave a lot on there, just enough for you to hold anyway. All right, so I'm going to leave that much there. And now I'm going to continue the weave as if I'm using the same wire. So go down the next one, number 4, number 5, and there. So now you've got the new wire. Now you've got the new wire coming out the front, the old wire coming out the back. I'm going to continue this weave till I'm done, and then we will cut these off, and I'll show you how to cut them off and have them disappear. I added 12 more rows to the end of this, which makes this a total of 24 here. All right, now I'm going to end all these pieces that I have. This is where my wire was too short. I showed you how to add the additional wire. Now we're just gonna cut these off and bend them into the bracelet. And I'm going to end I'm gonna finish off this piece and I'm gonna finish off this piece because I don't need those now. So I am going to cut the end of this. You don't need a lot. I usually like to weave with about 3 inches, so I'm gonna cut about 3 inches off there. All right, first we'll deal with this. So this is where the wire was too short to continue, so I added a piece. So now I got a piece coming out here and a piece coming out here. All you do is just take your flush cutters. Now you need a really good small pair of flush cutters because you want to cut as close to the base wires and the weaving wires as you can. So I'm just going to cut it off really close. I'll bring you in maybe a little bit closer there. Okay, so I'm going to cut that off with my flat side of my cutters. And I'm going to cut that off as close as I can. And of course you can feel the wire on that one side. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm going to take my Nylon Jaw Pliers, and where those two wires are kind of sticking out, I'm going to press those in. Press hard. And they're gone. Gone for good. Okay. Now I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to weave it in a little bit and end that one as well. So I'm going to take my awl and I am going to, let's see here, I think I'll go over two of them. So I'm going to take my awl and I'm going to go through my weave like that. Okay, so go through your weave. Take the end of that and just go up through that little hole. Take your pliers if you need, there. And then just make a hole. What I'm doing is I'm going to make a hole of each one of these wires, probably down to maybe 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't need a lot, probably 4. 4 would make me feel better anyway. So take your awl, put it through there. And then take your wire and weave it back through. Pull it tight. Okay, and then next one. Going down the line. And go back up. Going to cut this because it's getting a little brittle. All right, and I'm going to do one more, make sure it's coming out the back. I'm going to take my awl and make one more hole. Make sure to keep your finger out of the way because sometimes it might be difficult to get the awl through there and then all of a sudden it'll shoot through there, and that has happened to me and I'm telling you, ouch. Okay, and then I'm going to push it through there, pull it with my pliers, pull it nice and tight. You want it nice and tight. Push these down. And then I'm going to cut this off like I did the last one. So cut it off with the flat end of your cutters and as close as you can to your piece. All right, now I'm going to take my Nylon Jaw Pliers and just push that in. Push it together. Press everything so that it's nice and tight. There. Can't feel anything. It's perfect. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing with this side. Now we're ready to finish this end. So I'm going to make my first loop right on the edge here. I'm going to bring my wire down because it is quite long. So I'm going to cut it about here, right about there. And I have my work facing towards me. What I'm going to do is turn it around right now because it's just easier for me to work with my right hand and do the little twirl. I'm going to use my round nose pliers. And I may need to shorten this up again. I don't know. I'm going to go about there. My pliers. I'm just going to give it a twist. Now that's a little too big for me, so I'm going to trim it off again. Don't want it to be too big. All right, and then I'm going to do it again. That's a little better. I might trim it just a little bit more. I know this seems a little bit monotonous, but I like to do it this way just so I can get an idea of, you know, what size I want my twirl to be. It's better to just cut off a little bit than to cut off too much, right? And then you can't do anything with it because you've cut off too much. Okay, and I'm going to bring this one down. Just going to overextend it a bit, like that. And just straighten it out after. Like that. Now this one is going to go over a little bit, following that one. And with my fingers, I'm just going to start bending it into a curve. Now before I get that finished, I want to go through here. So I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to take the end of it and take the end of my wire. I'm going to go through there. All right, and then just pull it. Like it's sitting like that. And then I'm going to pull this one up. Like that. So the next wire in line, we're going to do the same thing. Just using your fingers. Try to keep that as close to the other one as possible. And honestly, don't worry if it gets a little out of shape. I mean, this is a totally organic piece. So, you know, play with it, make it yours. I'm going to pull this one down just a little bit. There we go. And then just leave that one sit there, like that. You can take the next one and do the exact same thing. And if you need to, just pull the wire back a little bit so you can actually get in there with your thumb and your fingernail. All right. Going on top of the last two wires, and take it and start bending it again, that natural bend. It's always good to take your wire closer to the end of it, like closer to the end, and pull it. Just gives it that more natural look. Okay. I'm going to pull it down a little and just start curving it in there. And this may take a little bit of practice. If you have some old wire, it's a good idea to practice, you know, making these type of natural curves with your fingers instead of trying to use tools. Okay. Now I have this extra wire here. We could do one more, maybe just a small one. We'll just do a small one. So again, pulling your wire down. This one's a smaller wire, so it's not a real big issue, but I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Start curving it in. Start getting that natural curve. There we go. just like that. Now I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to go around, make that a nice sharp and then give it a sharp bend around your bracelet, like that. And that's the back. Now I just got to figure out what I'm going to do with this last wire here. I'm going to curve this one down like that. I'm going to bring it around the front, curve it in front of those. Make a sharp turn there. And before I continue, I'm just going to press that with my Nylon Jaw Pliers. Just press that into place. There. All right, I'm going to bring it like this. Okay, and then I'm going to trim that right about there. I'm going to trim it right about there. And make my loop. Sometimes I like to use my chain nose pliers for these. Okay, and over it goes. Now I could finish these off with little loops here or just go back around with that. Maybe it'll look nice going back around. At this point, it's pretty much personal preference. You can take these and go back around and loop. I don't usually like to loop on the back, you know, because you're wearing, like if somebody's gonna wear it, you don't want them to take a, you don't want to take a chance that it might scratch them. So I think I'm gonna keep these fairly tight little loops on this side. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to take that back about over here. I'm going to take about that much off. Take my chain nose pliers and do another little loop right beneath that one, like that, and press it in. There we go. Now I'm going to do this one. Cut it about there. Cut it about there. Now this one I'm going to do the opposite direction. All right. Now I got it held firmly and just start making that loop. More twirl, there we go. Okay, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm just going to reinforce it in here. There's a little space there and I think that would look nice going back through there, and then I can loop it with these ones here. So I think I'm going to do that. It'll just make it look a little bit different. What the heck? We want different, right? So like that, and then bring it down here. So now we have to deal with these two wires back here. So let's see what we're gonna do. I think that looks nice. Okay, now we just have to end these two wires. So I think what I'm gonna do is curl them around here. If that makes any sense. It just gets rid of any loose ends, like so. So I'm pushing those up towards the one wire there. I'm gonna do this one first. Yeah, we'll do that one first. So I'm gonna cut it off about there. That should give me enough wire to go around that wire. Okay, then I'm gonna take my pliers and I'm gonna move this one out of the way here just a little bit so I can get to this one. And I'm going to squeeze it in like that. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to press those down there, like so. I'm going to take my Nylon Jaw Pliers and just press everything into place. There. There's nothing to catch on anybody's clothing or skin. You don't want that. Now all we have left to do is to bend it into a bracelet and add our findings. I'm going to use my mandrel here to round out this bracelet. This one I actually got from Amazon. It was actually not that expensive. It's just a cheap little wood mandrel, but I'm telling you, it works like a charm. You don't need those real expensive ones. And I like this one because it has the steps on it. So to round this out, I'm going to hold it. Now, normally when I'm shaping my bracelets, I will go with the much smaller size, like much smaller size. Actually, it would be up here somewhere. That would probably be my size of bracelet. But I like to go a little bit smaller because the wire will spring out again anyway. So you just got to hold it nice and firm and just ever so slowly press it around. And you can see that some of my work here is sticking out, so just press that down. Press the swirlies down too. Then I'm going to press everything into place, holding it really tightly. And there, perfectly round. Now you can shape it differently if you want. If you want it to be a more flat kind of oval or elongated shape, you can do that as well. Depends on the bracelet. I have it either way, so. So there it is there. Now we're gonna add our findings. Now normally I use chain, like on this one here. I used chain, but I already did a patina on this, so I already had the oxidized chain to, you know, the matching antique copper chain, and of course the lobster claw. So I really like this look, and of course if you have a larger wrist or a smaller wrist, it can be adjustable. But if you don't have the chain, it's just as easy to use like jump rings. It's just as easy to use jump rings. As you can see, I use a lot of the antique copper color. I'll just do it with these titanium. This is titanium colored. These are really, really tough too. These ones I get from Amazon. If you want a better finding, then I will leave a list of the places that I buy my really nice findings. So just hook it. I'm going to hook it around 2 of the wires. I'm going to use 2 pliers here just to put those together. All right, and I always add 3 to hold the findings on. When opening your jump rings, just pull it to the side like that. Okay, just to the side like that. And I'll put 3 at the end here. That's 3 on that side. I'm going to put 3 on the other side. Now obviously that's not the right color for this. Okay, now I'm going to get my lobster claw. And I've used magnetic clasps, and I like those too. Okay, then I'm going to take another one, open it up, put on my lobster claw. I always face my lobster claw to the inside of the bracelet, so the little clasp to open it is on the outside. So I'm going to hook it to this side here. There, and your lobster claw is on. Then just add the jump rings as much as you feel you need to add. And you can do 2 you can do 2 jump rings for each link or whatever. It's totally up to you, whatever you feel you need to do. Like I said before, obviously this is not the right color for this, but this just gives you a different option to do a clasp, to do, you know, something simple and easy. You can also do your own homemade clasps if you want. If you want a video on how I make my own clasps, because I do actually make my own clasp for some of my bracelets. But this one here, I just thought it was kind of, you know, something different. And, you know, it's adjustable, which I think is really nice. So this is with patina, this is without the patina. And I mean, either way, these bracelets are really pretty. And that's how I make my triple swirly bracelets.